I'm going to be who I am. I'm just going to be who I am. And that's okay. And let's do this thing. And so it was a very clear memory for me, and it was a very good memory, and I felt very good about it. And so really 1989 is when I came here, and that's just sort of how things transitioned from a place of struggle for me to a place of self-acceptance and self-embracing, and then, you know, just fully being who I am. My parents, however, have struggled and continue to struggle a little bit. On Christmas Day, 1990, they were here. We opened our presents, we had our family time, and had lunch, and my aunt left and went to visit some other folks, and then so it's just my parents and I. I'm their only child. And they said, just out of the blue, my father said to me, "Jill, are you a lesbian?" And to hear that word come out of my father's mouth, I'd never heard that word come out of his mouth, and it was just sort of jolting. My little father in his little coveralls that he wears, his little dicky coveralls, you know. He's a very sort of a country, you know, sort of man, and it just was a little bit jarring. And he just asked the question straight up, and he just looked at me. And if he had asked me that question even 6 months before that, I might have lied. Because I just knew it would kill them, or I thought it would. That it would just be so disappointing to them, and they would be so upset, and so vexed, and so just ripped apart. I knew that that's what was most likely to happen. And never, ever in my life have I wanted to upset my parents. You know, I'm sort of the classic only child model that wants to, you know, please them and do well, and, you know, I'll always sort of fit that. You know, I never got in trouble, never did drugs, never got in trouble, never was even grounded. I don't remember even being spanked. I never did anything wrong, really, that was significant. I always made A's. I mean, I was always the good kid, right? I was the geek. And I just, nothing in me wanted to disappoint them in the way that I knew this would. So that would have been the reason I would have lied. But I didn't. When he asked me, I didn't. So I told the truth. I said, "Yeah, Daddy, I am. I am." And he and my mother just broke into tears, racking sobs. And we had about a 6-hour conversation that was just very, very difficult. Yelling, crying, blaming, manipulating. I was manipulating them. They were manipulating me. We were just yelling. It was just awful. It was just awful, awful. It was a horrible conversation. And they were so hurt, and I was so angry, and it was just awful. And they needed to drive back to Louisiana that night anyway. So they were about to get in we just sort of ended it, and they were about to get into the car. And I'll never forget, my mother stood in front of me, and she was sobbing. Her eyes were swollen from crying. We were all just not in very good shape. And she said to me, she looked at me right in the eyes, she said, "Jill, I need to tell you this. I will always love you. I will never leave you. I will never, ever leave you. I would die for you. And I will never accept this. And you need to know that. I will never accept this. And I love you. And I'll die for you. But I will never accept this." So they got in the car and they left. And so, in many respects, that's how it remains today, 18 years later. They love me more than any two people on the planet. And I know that as well as I know my name. They absolutely do. They'd cut their arms off, I mean, just anything. And they don't accept this. And that's just how it is. That's how it is. And we have a closer relationship now than we have ever had, and that I ever thought was possible, even when I was the Christian missionary at 18 years old, not gay, didn't know I was gay, hadn't had that experience, hadn't had that awakening yet, nothing. Even when I was doing everything that they absolutely accepted. I am closer to them now. We have a much more intimate relationship now than we did then.